Welcome. We are so excited to have you joining today's online WEN event. My name is Nicole, and I will be your MC for this morning. I'm really looking forward to enjoying our time together with you. Today, we have guests from different places around British Columbia, as well as other cities around Canada, and international guests as well. Before we start the event, I would like to have a short icebreaker time. This is my question. You've been given a one-way ticket to another country of your choice. Where are you going? I would definitely have to pick Italy. Tell us your choice in the chat. Let me tell you a little bit about WEN, or Women's Heart Engaging Network. As women, we all have full schedules. Many of you are working, studying, and some of you may be juggling family responsibilities as well. How many of you are so impressed with your ability to do so many things at the same time? We all often wish that we had more time to connect with other women who are in the same phase of life. For me, connecting with other women allows me to laugh, have fun, learn something, or to be challenged to grow. During COVID, we definitely missed this connection, but we are so glad that we can still meet each other online. WEN was founded more than 10 years ago for exactly this reason, connecting with other women who are in the same phase of life. We are a multicultural group that puts on events like this in different languages to connect women at a heart level. Let's watch a short video about WEN. At WEN, we believe everyone has a story, and we are interested in hearing these extraordinary stories from real women today. It is a pleasure to have Dorielis Friesen as our special guest speaker. She will be interviewed by her good friend, Jeannie Munir. Dori grew up in Venezuela and moved to Canada when she was 16. She is currently the National Director for 24/7 Prayer Canada and is married to her husband, Jason. Together, they have two sons, Gabriel and Tomas, and currently live in Vancouver, BC. Jeannie is our very own National Director for WEN and is currently living in Chilliwack, BC with her husband, Kelly, and her two dogs, Sam and Ella. You can often find Jeannie sipping a cup of her favorite tea, creamy Earl Grey, or on the nearest lake in her kayak.
Well, Dori, we are so excited to have you today joining WEN. And I know this isn't your first time speaking in WEN, but you actually shared with your mom in Spanish at a WEN event several years ago, I think. So
Yes.
yeah. So we're so excited to have you back and sharing your story this time in English. So, and I know that English is not your native language, not your first language, because you, like so many of the women who are watching, and myself, were not born in Canada. You were actually born in Venezuela. So can you share a little bit about what your family was like and what growing up was like in Venezuela?
Yeah, thank you, Jeannie. And I was born in Caracas, Venezuela, actually in a suburb of Caracas in a smaller community, and grew up in a very humble family. I just remember just my parents working really hard during the week, long days, coming home at 9 p.m., leaving at 7 a.m. So very hardworking parents and a very strong knit together family type of place. So we had a lot of family gatherings, like weekends will be dedicated to our family. We would make a large soup and my grandparents will be there, all my dad's brothers will be there, some of my mom's family will be there. So it would be all together, like over 60 people just getting together to be and to eat and to laugh, lots of laughter. If you know Latin American culture, we love to laugh and love to just be together. So that was a lot of what I grew up in Venezuela.
Yeah, so a really tight-knit family. You were really close and a deep love for each other. So, which is so beautiful. That's such a beautiful thing. And so when you were 16, your life actually changed pretty drastically. and you left that tight-knit family. And so can you tell us at 16 where you went and what your life looked like?
Yeah, so I was pretty eager to learn other languages and really wanted to go to Canada. And surprisingly, my parents just let me go to Canada to study English. And so I moved to Canada when I was 16 and just initially to study English, but then decided to stay longer. And soon after that, my parents and younger brother, actually only brother, decided to they had to flee Venezuela because of just political reasons. So we became a refugee family in Canada. My parents, my mom, my brother, and I. So that's a little bit of that.
Yeah. So that time when you were living in Canada by yourself and you were 16 and you had left this tight-knit family community and were living in another country, what was that like for you? What were some of those things you experienced and lived while you were on your own?
Yeah, so I was living with a host family, so I wasn't living just on my own. I had a host family, but it wasn't my family. It was a different culture, different rhythms. And then also I had like very few boundaries. So being a 16-year-old, that was always with aunties and uncles and mom and dad, moving to Canada and just having a host family that had no boundaries. Like there was a lot of changes in just the things I did. I don't tell anyone, got a fake ID, started going clubbing and things like that. So like I was really into just whatever I could do to find that belonging, to find that family life rhythm. And I think clubbing and partying and drinking and all of that became a part of just that for me, my rhythms of life. Other things that were happening around me on that season was that because I was here in Canada and there was a lot happening in Venezuela, not just for the nation as a whole during that season, but specifically to my family. There was a lot of things that they were experiencing that really kept me in a constant worry or fear about them dying or fear that something would happen to them. So it was kind of like I was here and I was there as well in my heart and mind, and my worries were there. And then a lot of the things that I was doing here was trying to cope with my emotions. Really, as I think back, that was a big part of it. So living, it was essentially like living in two parallel worlds. I'm here, there's all of these things here, there's the beauty of Canada, the beauty of what I am experiencing here, and also the difficulty of being an immigrant on your own. But then there's my family there who are struggling and who are going through things that I wouldn't want them to go through. So that was a constant narrative in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. A constant concern being so far away. And again, I know just really having your community and having your family taken away, you were looking for new community. And I know you mentioned a little bit earlier about kind of getting into some things as a teenager that maybe you shouldn't have, but can you share a little bit more about where during that time where you looked for community and was it a good kind of community or was it, just share a little bit about what community looked like for you during that time.
Yeah, thanks. So I was surrounded by a lot of uh, clubs and club owners or managers, and I did share a little bit of this, but like it was kind of like this trying to belong into a community. So I started sort of leaning towards bringing people from my international English school into the clubs with me, or whatever I could do to gather people, kind of like what I was doing in Venezuela, but in a very unhealthy way for me, at least, because it led me to struggle with alcohol addiction. I struggle with cigarette addiction, so smoking over 24 cigarettes a day. And really just going from morning until 3 a.m. up and just being out in the clubs and so on. So that was just a sort of like a Monday to Sunday rhythm for me of going out in the clubs, bringing in people, trying to study in the meantime, numbing my feelings and emotions through that. Very, very unhealthy rhythms of life, and very lonely as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier too that your parents and your brother did eventually come to Canada. And so they came here. How old, if you don't mind sharing, how old were you when your parents and your family finally came?
Yeah, I would have been around 18, 19, like
Okay.
19.
Yeah, so you'd had 2 or 3 years kind of on your own, living on your own, and then your family comes. And I know for a lot of people, um, it's like when a family comes from a country where there's a lot of upheaval and they come to a place like Canada that's relatively peaceful, a lot of people think that, oh, your life is just great then, right? Like you have freedom and we live in this beautiful country, but that wasn't really the case for your family. And so feel free to share what you would like to share and what you wouldn't like to share, because we want to respect boundaries. But what can you share about what your life for your family looked like when they got here to Canada?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. And you're right. Like, I think there is a difference from the reality of being in another country, longing to come to a first world country like Canada, and then realizing once you get there, oh, is this all there was to it? And I, for my family, because we were political refugees, and there was a lot of different things that were happening in Venezuela at the time. There was a lot of trauma attached to them having to leave the country. And, as with most refugees, actually all refugees, when you have to flee your home, it's not like a choice. You didn't want to move to that other country. And so there is just all of that, like the emotions of having left suddenly and having to figure life out in a new country that you didn't really wish to live in. Luckily, I was here, but I was also struggling with, as I mentioned, alcoholism, addiction to cigarettes, partying, and bringing people into the club. So I had already such strong life rhythms. And for my parents, it was like they had to flee this very difficult situation. And then they come to Canada and confront the reality that they had lost their daughter. Pretty much like that I was a different person. And that was really difficult for my father in particular. Like that was difficult for everybody, but for my father in particular, with everything that he had faced back home, and then coming here, and then seeing me struggle with everything that I was struggling with, he actually started struggling with depression and anxiety. And it was really bad. It led him to have suicidal thoughts, and he would want to commit suicide, or he would have panic attacks. He had so much anxiety that he would have between 20 to 25 panic attacks in one day. And he had a psychiatrist that was working with him at the time. He actually prescribed my dad as the worst case he had seen in his whole career of over 20 years of being a psychiatrist. And through this as well, my dad decided that it would be best to be away from my family. So he decided to move away from our home and moved into a different house and started the process of wanting to divorce my mom. And I think it was really, in a way, he was trying to protect us. That was a very dark season in our life, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you share with us some of your feelings, like what you were feeling during that time?
Yeah, it was pretty hopeless. I mean, I was living a life that I didn't want to live. I didn't know how to get out of the relationships I had were so strong and calling me back into the clubs on a daily basis. Once you're in that kind of a life and that's your community, it's very difficult to live a community like that, to leave it. And then, so it was all of that, and then struggling with this feelings of like, I did this to my parents, I did this to my mom and dad, I could have done better, I could have done this or that. And so it was like, finally I had an answer in them being close to me, but then everything they were experiencing was, I remember it being a very difficult thing for me, and it actually led me deeper and deeper into my addictions to alcohol and my dependency on cigarettes and unhealthy friendships in that season.
Yeah. But that's not the end of your story. And we're so thankful that it's not the end of your story. And so something happened to your dad actually first that really began to restore hope, and it impacted you as well. So can you share what that process looked like and what you experienced?
Yeah. So during the season that my dad was living in a separate place, somebody invited him to go to an alpha course.
And so I'm just going to pause right there really quick too. And could you share a little bit about what an alpha course is, if there's people who are watching who don't know?
Yep. Yeah, and the Alpha course is a 12-week sort of introductory course to Christianity and to the Bible. Who is Jesus? Why did Jesus die on the cross? How do I read the Bible? How to pray? Very basic things to learn about Christianity. And then in that, there's also a weekend away. So it's a very good community-based experience to learn about God and the Bible.
Yeah. So someone invited your dad to an alpha.
Yeah, somebody invited my dad to an alpha course. He ended up going to alpha. We didn't know because he wasn't living with us, so we had no idea that he was going to an alpha course. And my dad was like used to being agnostic, like he wouldn't walk into the church, didn't really had a lot of questions about God and all of that. And so, but he decided to say yes to that invitation. So he went on an alpha course, and he was then invited to an alpha weekend away, that the weekend that I just talked about. And during that weekend, he had an encounter with God that was very powerful to him. And he came back that Sunday afternoon and asked if he could come visit us. And so we prepared a meal for him. Of course, we were so happy to see him. Anytime he would say he was coming home, we were just so happy to see him. So we prepared a meal, and at the dinner table, he sat and he asked, he asked my mom for forgiveness. And he said, I have encountered God this weekend, and I've encountered his love, and I would love to ask you for forgiveness. And then he extended that to us, and he said, would you also forgive me? I want my family back, and I want to move back with us. And my mom did, and we did, and he actually ended up moving back that same day to our home.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And it opened a door for you as well. And
Yeah.
so can you share a little bit about what that looked like for you?
Yeah. So, of course, the experience that my dad had really moved me. Like, who is this God he met? How is it that he is so transformed after spending time at this weekend away? And to be honest, I had like all sorts of emotions going on around it when he shared that, because it's like, it's so good that he's in this journey. I don't understand it. But he was like, Dori, you really should come to an alpha course with me. And I was like, no, Dad, that's definitely a you thing. You're doing it. I'm glad it's helping you. I don't need help. I genuinely don't need help, which obviously wasn't true. And then he did trick me into it a bit, Ginny, because he said, you know, Dori, I'm struggling with so much depression. If you go to this thing, it would really help my depression and anxiety. And I was like, okay, well, then it's done, because whatever I can do to help you with your depression, I will do it. So I decided to go on an alpha course as well. And, you know, it struck me like the first, as I walked into the doors of this church, all these people smiling. I was like, what is it? Like, what do they have that I don't have? Like, they're always just so happy. And that happened that night after night. I would go in and just all these people smiling, so welcoming. And then they had this time where they, you know, would sing songs to God, which they call worship, and people would lift up their hands in worship. And I remember always sitting in the back and thinking, like, isn't it so funny that they are willing to make like fool of themselves, but lifting their hands to God and just don't care what people are going to say about them. They just do it because they love God that much. And I would just always have that thought in the back of my mind. But then one night I finally was like, well, I'm sitting here in the back and they're there, so nobody's really looking at me. And what if I did what they're doing? Like, I long for that so much, to just give myself wholeheartedly to this thing I didn't know, but I just long for it. And so I decided to lift up my hands and just said, God, I love you. I love you. And I just remember yelling that out loud. The worship was so loud, nobody could hear me, but I just, or maybe they could, and I just didn't notice, but I was just like, I love you, God. And I remember just yelling that out from the inside, like from the very inside of my being, and just my hands lifted up. And I can't explain it, other than I felt him say, I love you too, in a physical way in my body. Like, I felt his love. I've never felt anything like that just come and wash over me. I felt him saying, I love you too.
Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful and so beautiful. So thank you for sharing about that. It's yeah, it's what so many long for, right? To have that peace, to experience that love. So your life began to change after that encounter with God. And so can you share again what that process looked like, and maybe some of the people that God brought into your life, and yeah, how your life really began to change after that?
Yeah, quite a few things. I mean, for me, it was quite like right after that encounter with God, I just, you know, started praying things like, I just want to do whatever you tell me to do. I'm all in, whatever you want me to do, God, I will do it. And I remember one time the pastor was talking at the church on a Sunday morning. He was talking about how when we accept Jesus into our hearts, when we belong to him, when we love him, he actually speaks to us, like the Holy Spirit, who is God himself, who speaks to us, and we can hear God's voice. And that impacted me so much, like the fact that we can actually hear God's voice. And I remember going home, and I had a very important university test that day, but I was like praying, God, I want to hear your voice. I want to hear what you have to say. And I remember the Holy Spirit whispering in my ear, quit smoking because I want you to be healthy. And I was holding a cigarette in that moment. So if you're a smoker, you know how difficult it is for somebody when somebody tells you to quit smoking and you're halfway through that cigarette. And I was halfway through my cigarette and I heard those words, and quite literally, and this happened, I couldn't smell the cigarette anymore. It was like, it was gross. I couldn't smell it. I couldn't continue smoking it. And I had tried to quit so many times and I couldn't. And it was like instant. I quit smoking in that very moment, and I've never smoked since. So that was one of the things that that happened. There were so many other things. Like I when I enter into the season of really wanting to be renewed by God, I wanted all of Him, nothing less. And I started praying. I realized that to get out of the club life and so on, I really needed new friends. So I started praying to God for new friends, and He gave me so many wonderful friends. Also, really closed doors. Like, I don't understand how it happened, but like, my prayer was, God, take away all the friendships that I don't need in this season. Like, just take them away and bring me new friends, because I know I will be lonely and I need new community. And He surrounded me with community really from the church that were either attending Alpha or just like from Sundays, and also closed doors with other people that were really not healthy for me. Like, I've reconnected with some of them since after, but in that season, it wasn't a good thing for me. They weren't helping me in my journey to healing. So yeah, He brought one of my really good friends to this day. Her name is Judith. She's now my sister-in-law. That's another story. But yeah, she's one of my really good friends, and so many more. So that's kind of, should I share about my husband and how I met?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay,
share that.
I'm jumping. Okay, so yeah, fun thing. So I started praying as well for my future spouse and really asking God, Laura, I've been in many relationships. I've been in abusive relationships, and I am done with all of it. I want nothing but you and what you want for me. I want a godly man that loves you and follows you. And I started praying into it, and um, it was a lot of just praying and believing and saying, I'm standing on this, and I'm keeping myself for that special person that you have for me. And He really gave me the strength. But so then my friend Judith, whom I met in the beginning of my very first Alpha course, she had become a really good friend. Then she moved away, and I was so sad, so devastated that she had moved, because she met somebody and got married. But that was exciting too. Anyways, I went over to Manitoba, where she's from, to meet her and to meet her husband. And we were spending some time together, and I ended up meeting her brother. And it was love at first sight. I saw him and I was like, he is going to be my future husband. Very handsome. And yeah, so I'm now married to Jason, and we have 2 kids, Gabriel, who is 3, and Tomas, who's 1. And yeah, just so many, I could share so many things with you, Jeannie, that God has done in my life.
Yeah, well, just briefly share, what does your life look like now? What's going on with you now?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I was one of my part-time jobs was nightclub promoting. I was also trying to, my real estate license, I was doing some real estate on the side, and so many different things. But when one of the things that I felt one day in prayer, when I started to follow God wholeheartedly, I felt that He called me to be in ministry full-time, and I just had no clue. I was like, what is that going to look like? I mean, others can do it. I'm so new in my faith. How is God calling me to do this? But I really felt Him calling me to be doing ministry full time. And so I started pursuing sort of anything and everything that was related to God. I would go to any prayer meeting I was in. I sometimes would get mad that the church wouldn't have more prayer meetings. I was like, why do we only have like 2 prayer meetings in the week? We need like 6 days a week prayer. And I would just be so, I just wanted more and more and more. And that was kind of what I knew God was really calling me into. So my life now looks like married to Jason, a very godly man who loves Jesus wholeheartedly. And I am working for a ministry called 24/7 Prayer Canada. I am the national director of this ministry. And so we essentially mobilize prayer across the nation. and do that jointly with other ministries and local churches and so on. So that's part of it. And I just love that I get to be doing that, which was my very first calling to God. Like, why isn't there more prayer meetings? Now I get to be in a lot of just prayer meetings and doing that, facilitating spaces for others to meet God and to encounter the love that I encountered that very first time at church.
Yeah. Oh, Dori, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to hear your story and how God entered in with healing and hope and restoration and brought people alongside you to join that journey. And so it's so beautiful. I know that there's a lot of women who are watching right now who are in a similar situation. They're in Canada as refugees or immigrants, and their life may not be so great. And so is there some advice that you would like to give to women who are watching?
Yeah, I would say, the community of God is so large across Canada, and it's an invitation for you to join, no strings attached. Like you can do it. And I think my biggest fear when I started going to church is like, is it some weird kind of cult? Are they gonna like just put me in a room and I'm gonna have to be going to church every day and not? And the opposite was true. I found freedom when I met the community of the church, and they were so helpful to us in our journey of both healing from trauma, but also growing in this nation that felt so foreign to us. And so I highly encourage you to lean into God, to lean into the family of God.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good advice. And I know that there's also a lot of us who will be watching today that are already Christians. We already belong to a community of faith. We have that relationship with Jesus. And so there's a story that you shared with me about a lady at a bus stop. And I'm wondering if you can share that with us. Also, just to encourage the women who are Christians, what we can do to reach out to women who we know have come from another nation. So can you share that story?
Yeah, definitely. I love that story. Thanks for bringing that up. So I had just arrived in Canada and was an international student. On my way to school, I was at the bus stop, and this lady approached me, and she was like, "Hey, Dori, I'm your neighbor." No, she didn't say my name. She was like, "Hey, I see you every morning here at the bus stop, and I'm your neighbor, and my name is Leticia, and I just, I see you every day here, and I notice you're Latin, and I'm your neighbor. Why don't you like come over sometime and have coffee with me?" And I was like, "Okay, this is a little bit odd." And then she's like, "Well, you can also come to like an alpha course that we have at our church. It's a discipleship course. You're gonna love it. You can meet people." And I was like, "Yeah, definitely not interested." Of course, I was just saying this internally. I was very polite to her, and she's a very kind lady. And so I was like, "Thank you so much. I'll consider it." And I never called her again. And never knew anything else about her. Fast forward, I came to faith, and as I told you, I just wanted to be at every prayer meeting. So I'm this one morning, I'm standing at the door at a prayer meeting, just volunteering, and it was right near the end of the meeting, and this lady starts running across from the room towards me, and I'm thinking, that's odd, because she's like directly approaching me, and she's crying, like she has tears in her eyes, and she just looked at me and said, "Are you Dori?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I'm Leticia." And I did not remember until she said, "I met you at a bus stop a few years ago. And I was your neighbor then. You were staying with a homestay family." And I said, "Oh yeah, how are you?" She said, "Dori, I have been praying for you ever since I saw you at the bus stop every single day. The Lord just kept saying, Leticia, keep on praying. And I kept saying to him, I don't know where Dori is. I don't even know what she's doing right now. I don't know her phone number. Like, why would I pray for her? And the Lord kept saying, no, Leticia, pray for Dori. So for over 5 years, for sure, Leticia prayed for me to encounter God's love. And she had no idea. She had no idea of my life, but she did it. She faithfully did it every day. And every time I share my story, or every time I share about the work I'm doing, I just tell people, I truly believe I'm standing in the prayers of Leticia. Yeah. That she was a godsend to me to hold me in prayer during those very difficult years. So that's what you can do. That's what a lot of us who already know Jesus and are wondering, what is my part to play? If anything at all, pray and lean on to him, because and the names, some of you, I feel like I often get this when I'm talking to people. It's like, I don't know if my prayers are making any difference. Like, I have prayed, and some of you, fair enough, have prayed for years, and the Lord is saying, keep on praying, do not quit, just keep on praying. In due time, you will see the Doris come to life in your life, and you will see that blooming.
Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful story. Yeah. Yeah. And Dori, we want to end with this, but I know that faith in Jesus has played such a huge role in your life, and it has transformed your life. It's changed you. And so if there's women who are watching who would like to experience that same transformation and really come into a relationship with Jesus and know him the same way you and I know him, what would you tell them? Can you walk us through what that process would look like for someone?
Yeah, it can be, there's not direct formula to it, really. It can be as simple as you doing what I did in that church that day, that you lift up your hands right where you are and you say, God, I love you. And you say it out loud. You speak those words into being. You're feeling it. Like, it is engraved within us. We were made to worship God, to be with him, to be in community with him. That's what you and I were made to do. So it might just look like you expressing what you were already created to do, which is, I love you, God. I'm here for it. Like, just saying your own words. And sometimes I do find it really helpful to give myself into a posture of, surrender. I know that the life in Canada is, whether you're an immigrant, a refugee, or you're not, it's difficult. Life is difficult. We just went through 2 years of and over of a pandemic. We've been through a lot of trauma, and I feel like we've just gone from, like, we're just constantly trying to get up every day. Like, it's just like another day, and here I am, I'm fighting this battle. And I recently had this picture of fighting the battle on the ground with Jesus, like that, as you like drop to the ground, tired and worn out and ready to give up, willing to let him do what he does and be who he is, which is God, the God of the universe. As you do that, I believe he will lift you up, and I believe he would be the one that holds you. So I want to encourage you, for those of you who've never experienced the heavy weight being lifted off of your shoulders, this surrender that is in a way supernatural, I want to encourage you to do it. So maybe I can say a prayer, Jeannie?
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, so why don't we do that? We can say a prayer. I want to encourage you, whatever you are, find a comfortable posture. Maybe you're in your room watching, you can kneel, or you can just lift up your hands, whatever a comfortable posture is for you, and just say the words. Say the words with me. I love you, Jesus. I love you, Jesus, I surrender. I surrender. Your will, your way be done in my life. Come and take over. Come and take over. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dori, for sharing your story and for leading us through that prayer. And we, as WEN, our volunteers will walk alongside women who make that decision and help them find a community of faith. We're actually offering an Alpha group, and our MC will share a little bit more about that, but we're starting an Alpha group. So women who have questions can come and explore what this relationship with Jesus looks like. So, but thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me, Jamie.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorielis, for sharing your beautiful and powerful story. As you heard, Dorielis' story is filled with the hope that Jesus will always be with her through every phase of life. One of the reasons for WEN is to provide opportunities for women to connect. If you would like to continue to connect, we would love to get your feedback and stay in touch. To do this, simply click the link in our comment card that's showing up in the chat area now. If you fill out the comment card, you'll receive a free digital download of a painting created by our very own Abbotsford team member, Melanie. So go ahead and fill out that comment card right now. Another great way to connect is through our Alpha groups. These groups are formed after each event for us to get to know each other better and to provide an opportunity to learn more about what it means to have a relationship with Jesus. Alpha is a safe space where everyone is welcome. Let's watch a quick video about Alpha.
When we get here, everything was a mess for us. I start suffering a lot of depression, and I thought a lot of taking my life. I leave my family for a couple of months. I start drinking a lot of pills. I remember it was 22 pills per day, suffering more than 10 panic attacks per day. Everybody in my family was falling apart, my daughter, my son, my wife. The family was a mess.
My parents coming here, it actually felt quite difficult because it almost the roles shifted. They didn't know the language, they were immigrants. I was in a very unhealthy place myself, and then I had to kind of step up and be almost like their mom. Through that, also seeing my dad go from being my hero to being a broken person. And he would say things like, I hate you guys, I don't want to be with you.
A friend of mine, he invited me to the church. At that point, I didn't go to any church. I didn't believe in God. I just was lost. And I went to the church on Sunday and I heard about Alpha. And this friend invited me to Alpha the following Monday, and we came to Alpha together. It was a fantastic experience, and when I came to Alpha, everything changed in my life.
I clearly remember the day that my dad came home and said, I've been doing this thing called Alpha, and I thought, that's crazy, my dad is doing something at a church. I couldn't deny the fact that my dad had changed so radically. I remember when he asked me to come to Alpha, he said, you'll meet people that will be healthy and good for you. And when he said that, I kind of thought, yeah, that's what I need. I need good friends. I need healthy friends. The first night, I just remember being they're all overly friendly, but they're so good. If this is true, I'm never leaving this place. During the last talk, I just remember saying okay, God, I have all this stuff that I'm doing. I just want you to take it all away. I don't want it anymore. I just want to follow you. I just want to do everything I can to please you and to bring people to know you. And I just felt this strength that I never had before to quit drinking. And then shortly after, the day after, I stopped smoking. And the weekend after, I got baptized.
I knew that feeling, and I was so happy because she got it. She got the idea. She was extremely happy. It's the happiness that you're never gonna see before.
I am super thankful that you invited me to Alpha Dad. Thank you. It changed my life. Like it changed everything for me. Thank you.
Was it me?
We will be starting an Alpha group next week and would love to have you join. The information for the group is showing on your screen now. To connect with our Alpha group, simply fill out the comment card link that is appearing on your screen. Filling out the comment card will take 2 minutes and allows us to let you know when we have more events like this one, and provides opportunities for us to connect with you. We also leave a space on the comment card for you to leave your opinions and some feedback for our speaker. Well, our program is now over. It has been such a pleasure to have you all here this morning. I genuinely hope that Dorielis' story has impacted your lives in the way that it has mine. We hope to see you again at one of our upcoming events. Have a good day, ladies.